Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to National Cheng Kung University. I'm Ellen Xie, Deputy Director of International Relations Division, NCKU. It's my great honor to be today's MC. Welcome to the launch of the Nobel Laureate Lecture Series hosted by National Cheng Kung University. It's a great privilege for NCKU to host Professor Sir Christopher Pissarides, the 2010 Nobel Laureate in Economic Sciences, and to receive all the distinguished guests at NCKU's beautiful campus. Let us begin today's event by introducing our honorable guests. We are honored to have our speaker, Professor Sir Christopher Pissarides, the 2010 Nobel Laureate in Economic Sciences. Welcome. And another guest from National Zhongxin University, Professor Zheng Mingsong, Dean of R&D. Welcome. And representing NCKU, we are glad to have President Meng Rushen. Executive Vice President Shi Weizhang. Chair Professor Sun Yuanxie, Vice President for International Affairs. Chair Professor Quanpu Liu, Vice President for Research and Development. Professor Qunli Cai, Dean, College of Social Sciences. Professor Jingjun Cai, Dean, College of Science. We offer our sincere gratitude to our esteemed guests, NCKU representatives, and all the participants for gracing us with your presence. To formally inaugurate this event, it's my honor to invite our moderator, Executive Vice President John, to the stage for the welcome address. EVP John, please.
Good afternoon, distinguished Nobel laureate, Professor Sir Christopher Pissarides, right? And esteemed guests, dear faculty members and talented students. What a truly momentous day for National Cheng Kung University. It is with profound joy and immense honor that I welcome you to the launch of our NCKU Miss Nobel. And today's topic is AI Sustainability, Insights for the Future lecture series. We're thrilled to host a true intellectual giant, Professor Sir Christopher A. Pissarides, the 2010 Nobel Laureate in Economic Sciences. Professor Pissarides' work has already been at the vanguard of economic thought. He received the Nobel Prize for his significant contributions to macroeconomics, especially the study of labor markets, economic growth, and structural change. His book, Equilibrium on Employment Theory, remains an essential reference for scholars worldwide. More recently, he has dedicated his expertise to understanding the most pressing global challenge of our time, the profound employment implications of automation and artificial intelligence on our societies and our well-being. This afternoon, Professor Pissarides will deliver his keynote address on a topic that sits at the core of NCKU's future focus, AI and the future of work and well-being. This theme perfectly aligns with the mission of NCKU and many other universities worldwide to integrate cutting-edge AI technology, not just for economic efficiency, but for genuine, sustainable human flourish. His insights will undoubtedly challenge us to look beyond mere productivity gains and consider how we can secure the conditions for good work and well-being in the age of rapid automation, and AI. This significant event is held under the banner of the Taiwan Bridges Program, a collaborative initiative between the International Peace Foundation and Taiwan, dedicated to fostering long-term educational and cultural exchange for the goal of world peace. As one of the leading Taiwanese universities participating in this program, NCKU is proud to host prestigious scholars of Professor Pissarides' caliber. The Taiwan Bridges program aims to inspire innovative thinking, and this lecture today is a perfect illustration of that goal, providing our community with a unique opportunity for dialogue with one of the world's most distinguished minds. To our students and faculty, I urge you to seize this opportunity. Professor Pissarides is not only a leading economist, but also the co-chair of the Institute for the Future of Work in London, advising institutions from the World Bank to the Bank of England. His practical wisdom, earned through decades of research and policy advice, is invaluable. Let us open our minds and engage fully in the discourse he presents. Now, we are delighted to warmly welcome the distinguished Nobel Laureate, Professor Sir Christopher A. Pissarides, to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, EVP Zhang, for those inspiring words. Please return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we now commence the core intellectual discourse of our afternoon. It's a privilege to welcome our speaker, Professor Sir Christopher Pissarides. He will deliver his highly anticipated address on the topic, AI and the Future of Work and Well-being. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that very accurate introduction. When you talked about work, I don't mean personal things. And Mr. President, I'm very pleased to be here, distinguished guests, dear students, and other guests from outside. I really enjoyed my visit so far in your city, and I look forward to talking to you about AI and employment, the skills. Is the big worry that people have about AI. Is it going to take our jobs away? Are we going to be paid well? Are we going to be left only with rubbishy jobs? There's a lot of speculation going on, which is not really justified, most of it. So I hope that by the end of today, you leave this room more encouraged that you're attending such a good university, and with your degrees, you have nothing to worry about. In fact, if you're happy just to hear this, you can get up and go and have a good time. But I hope to convince you. Now, what I'm going to do is to cover these topics. I think we have enough time. Don't spend too long trying to understand all the details. I have this fault in preparing my slides that I write too much, and I try to explain everything I write. You know, forever an academic, don't say anything without an explanation or without evidence. We should all learn from Donald Trump and just throw things at people and expect them to believe them without providing the evidence. But we cannot always get away with that. I'm going to cover these topics here. First, I'm going to talk about technological change in the labor market. Of course, the main technology nowadays is AI, so the talk will be about AI and some robotics. And then I'm going to give you a framework to study the impact of AI on jobs. Don't think that we know everything about AI. No one does. And I'm going to give you the views of really important people who have done research in AI, and you see how different they are. Then, of course, we cannot have a talk without talking about frictions, and I'm going to talk about AI frictions. And then maybe the most important section of all, so I hope you're not exhausted by the time we get there, how do we prepare for the world of AI, and what skills do we need for the future? The last one is just two graphs that I find fascinating, talking about well-being. The executive vice president of the university mentioned that I do care a lot about the well-being of work in the age of AI. Unfortunately, we don't have time to cover that, but if you invite me back, then I'll tell you about well-being next time. That's a promise. Now, technological change in the labor market. Now, today, of course, the main technologies that are disrupting labor markets are AI and robotics. Robotics really have been confined to manufacturing, and their world is passing in a sense, although there are still lots and lots of robots. More robots than ever, in fact, are still produced in this world and installed in manufacturing, mainly by China, actually, and other industrial countries. But China is buying and putting into operation more robots than the rest of the world put together. There are, and AI is coming, but it's not yet sufficiently widespread to be causing structural changes in the economy, but they will cause structural changes in the AI will cause structural change in the economy. Robotics have already caused structural change, and I'm going to explain in a minute what structural change that is. Now, there are disagreements about AI, in fact, such extreme disagreements that I thought I would just put down what some distinguished people are saying, which is a reflection that we don't know really what's coming, so don't expect to find undisputed answers. I could have put your country fellow Jensen Huang here as well, actually, because he also started taking extreme views. I don't agree with him either, I'm afraid, but the world would be a boring place if we all agreed about things. Now, Jeff Hinton, he's known as the godfather of AI. He's a Brit who migrated to Canada. He got the Nobel Prize last year in physics for his work in AI. And he's warning us that if we're not careful, sooner or later, AI will take over the world and we will not know how to control it. He's a young 78-year-old, 77 to 78, and he said, the only good news about it, he said, is that it will not come in my lifetime. It will not come over the next 5 and 10 years, and then I'll be gone and I will not worry about it. So it's your problem that you will not be able to control AI. Stuart Russell is another very distinguished British professor who migrated to Berkeley, California, and he's a distinguished AI professor. He claimed that AI could wipe out humanity. He was interviewed by the BBC, our broadcasting media station. And they said to him, the interviewer said to him, how do you mean it will destroy the world? And he said, look, you know, we landed on Mauritius as Homo sapiens, and the dodo was there, and the dodo hadn't seen humans before. They didn't know how to deal with humans. By the time they learned, we wiped them out. And that's what AI is going to do. He said, don't worry about it. But he was serious. At least I shouldn't worry about it like Hinton. But on the other hand, you have Demis Hassabis, my country fellow now, actually, like one with yours, who lives in London like me. And he's the CEO of Google DeepMind. He's a big optimist, brilliant scientist, of course. He won the Nobel Prize last year for his work on proteins. And he's saying that within 10 years' time, AI would provide cures for all known diseases. And doctors will no longer have work, Mr. President, I'm afraid, if he proves to be right. But he's not, don't worry. The jobs of medical doctors are still there. He and Sam Altman of OpenAI, the inventor of ChatGPT, of course, believe that in 5 to 10 years' time, AGI will come, artificial general intelligence, and it will be able to do most jobs that humans can do, only better. The difference between GI and just I is that GI will be able to do many tasks at the same time, whereas despite what people say about AI now, it can only do one task at a time that is programmed to do. But AGI will be able to reason itself and move from one to the other according to the circumstances. But then on the other hand, we do have control over AI. And I use the example of the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, who claimed that Microsoft is developing AI as a tool to help workers. And he's right, in fact. We had a meeting at the London School of Economics only less than a week ago with the Microsoft AI research, and that's why they came to us as social science university to see how can they develop AI in a way that helps people. Now, what about economists? Well, some economists have joined this pessimistic trend. Nobel Rubini of New York University, if you heard of him, Tom Friedman, the most distinguished economics journalist of the New York Times. I should say a very distinguished economic journalist of the New York Times, in case some others get offended. They recently written about AI taking over all our jobs. Of course, Elon Musk said that there would be no job left for humans to do. I think Justin Wang actually made some similar remarks. I don't agree with them at all, by the way, but they made those claims. I had a big argument with both Rubini and Friedman about it. But others believe that we have control over AI and we will develop it in a way that will enhance workers' abilities and capabilities, like Eric Brinkhofsson of Stanford, Darren Asimoglu and Simon Johnson, and other two Nobel Prize winners from MIT. That's what I believe too, actually, about AI, that's what's going to happen, or at least that's what it should happen. Now, the whole discussion is whether AI is going to replace labor or whether to augment labor. That's the framework in which these people have been talking, the economists have been talking about AI. I don't think, I used to like that framework, actually. In fact, when I wrote it down, I thought that's a good idea. I don't like that anymore. I don't think it's a good framework to split AI into two things, the one that's replacing human labor and the other one that is augmenting. I can give you examples why that's the wrong way of thinking about it, but it's something that's come to me new. That's why I haven't updated and I haven't talked to the others very much about it. Now, of course, AI is a new technology. What do we do about new technology? Well, new technologies bring growth and rising living standards. And they do that by raising productivity. We know that AI is going to raise productivity, not by very much, actually. I don't believe that it's going to raise the growth rate of developed countries by more than about 1% maximum. You know, there are people who believe that it's going to raise it by 4 or 5%. I don't think there's any evidence for that. But it also has strong implications for jobs, and the implications for jobs that it has is what's known as a structural change. There is no incident in economic history where we had growth without structural change in the economy. What does structural change mean in the economy? It means that we destroy some jobs in the economy and we create others, which might be somewhere else. Workers need to move from the sectors that destroy the jobs to the sectors that create the jobs. And that's how the world evolves. You know, like if you look at mainland China, for example, in 1980, it had 68% of its workforce in agriculture. Then they implemented some reforms. There was big structural changes. No, in manufacturing, it had almost zero. Only the state enterprises were employing people in manufacturing. Within 20 years, manufacturing had 40% of the labor force, and agriculture had 20% of the labor force. The biggest migration of labor ever, because when you move from agriculture to manufacturing, you don't always change jobs, you change the place where you live. You leave the countryside and you go and live in the cities. That's the structural change, that's what technology does. And you have examples from everywhere, every country that has developed. I mentioned China because it's the most recent one and it's fresh in the mind, and it's a neighbor here, so you're probably more familiar with than if I give you some examples from Europe, for example. Now, how does that work? Well, technology could affect the jobs of people directly. We're talking about agriculture. You get mechanical diggers. The mechanical diggers replace workers in agriculture. That's it. You've lost your job because now there's a machine digging the earth. Or you might be standing in an assembly line that makes cars, like Henry Ford introduced around 1910 or whatever, 100 years ago. Then suddenly you get robots assembling the cars in the assembly line. You've lost your job. You know that. You go and find another job. Manufacturing will create other jobs, or services will create them. So that's one way. It's where you replace workers directly. The other way is when that's more subtle, but it's more important, by the way. The second the final bullet point that I have there. And what happens there is that when you introduce new technology in a sector of the economy, productivity goes up usually. And when productivity goes up, you produce a lot more than you were producing before. Now, take that to be manufacturing and think of an economy that doesn't trade very much. It's the best way to think about it, the most intuitive way. You bring robots into manufacturing. Manufacturing produces a lot more goods, a lot more electrical appliances, for example, for the home and all that. But services don't produce more because robots cannot do services now, maybe never, but they cannot do it now. So what happens? You have an economy that produces a lot more manufacturing, same services as before. Well, it's unbalanced. The economy had a balance before. Manufacturing and services were at a certain level that people wanted. How do you respond to that? You respond by taking workers away from manufacturing, move them to services. They provide more services, so you rebalance the economy. And that's the challenge that we have to face, how to make workers transition or move from the sectors that introduce the technology to the sectors that don't introduce the technology. And that's the biggest challenge, not the challenge to stop AI from taking your jobs or something. AI will not take your jobs. You can live happy thinking that it's not going to do it. Now, that's what I just explained to you, so we can move on. The explanation I gave you, if you were listening carefully, is much better than the one on the slide. Now, I said that's the challenge, how to move the workers. You see, suppose you introduce a new technology now in a sector that has received it. I use robots because that was very recent and it's more or less complete. Like in 30 years ago, around in the 1980s, so 30 to 40 years ago, Europe, for example, and the United States were employing about 40% of their labor force in manufacturing. Since then, lots of new technologies were introduced, including robots, and they do the work in manufacturing. How many workers are they employing now in manufacturing? United States, about 8%. It went down from 40 to 8. United Kingdom, the same, 40 to 8, because the United Kingdom likes to copy the United States, whatever it does. Germany went down from 40 or whatever it was to about 16, 17% because it's the main manufacturing center of Europe. They all lost workers. Now, once you know that's going to happen because of technology, then of course the faster it happens, the better. But it's a very slow process. Why did it take 40 years for that to happen? Robots were introduced in the 1990s in a serious way, which what made robots very useful, by the way, in manufacturing is independent movement. Before about 1995, 96, the only robots that could operate were the ones that you screwed on the floor, and they were just moving arms like that, which is not very useful. Now they can walk around, and that's what created that boom that more and more are being produced all the time. Once that was introduced, you want that transition to be quick. You know what? What's the point of taking 30 years to do it? I mean, look at another very good example. Look at the countries of Eastern Europe that used to be under Soviet control. In 1990, they left the Soviet Union, or the Soviet Union left them rather, and their whole objective then was to reform so as to become like a European Union country. Take Hungary, Slovenia, Slovakia, Czech Republic, all these countries. Now that was 1990 to today, that's 35 years. They still haven't done it. They're just about getting close to the lower income countries of Southern Europe, like Greece and Portugal. But they're still well behind the mean of the European Union. They used to be about 40% of the mean, now they are 70% of the mean. Now, why is that? That's because there are some problems in the economy that don't allow the quick adjustment. And that's what I'm going to tell you now. That's the framework to study this slow adjustment, okay? So now you learn about Eastern Europe, about China, of course, and AI. Now, if you're going to understand that, I know that many of you are economists. If you ask an economist to study the economy, to tell you about the economy, what's the first thing that you're going to tell them? Supply and demand and price. In fact, Hayek, one of the famous professors of the London School of Economics, Austrian, I think, wasn't he? Not German. Yeah, Austrian. He won a Nobel Prize for explaining the role of prices in a supply and demand economy. If price goes up because more people want a particular product, then that price is giving an information signal to producers to produce more to meet those demands. If the price goes down because we've now invented new ways of producing computers, for example, I mean, the price of computers crashed in recent years, the price of robots has crashed, that's giving a signal to those who use this machinery to buy more because more is produced. It's known as the price system as a signaling device, and you think it's such a simple and obvious idea, but he won one of the most famous Nobel Prizes for it. I'm afraid that framework is not good to study the transitions that I explained before. You need to think of a different framework. Just like you needed to think of a different framework when you wanted to understand unemployment and the job matching theory. If you're going to understand that, in my view, what you need to think of, not supply and demand of hours of work, but jobs. Think of jobs. What is a job? A job is a unit, it's a bundle. You do many things in a job. You could call them activities, you could call them tasks, it doesn't matter. A firm decides what job description to give you because it's got different activities to say that you are responsible for, and you decide to take the bundle and become employed and produce. Now, that's a very simple idea to think about as well, but it changes completely the way that we think about the labor market, believe it or not. Employment is the aggregate of all jobs in the economy, the active jobs. If there is a job that is not active, it's a vacancy. If there is a worker who doesn't have a job, is unemployed, and so on. You can define all these different states that a person could find themselves. The research challenge, if you like, in thinking about jobs and not about hours of work is to discover which matches happen, which job matches happen, how productive are they, how fast do they happen. That's where I spent 30 years of my life, trying to understand these things. From my PhD, I started with my PhD for the next 30 years, I guess. Now, what is important to understand with AI, and this is what people didn't understand for a long time, but they're now coming around to thinking that that's the right way of looking at it. And I'm very annoyed with myself because I was working along this in a research project for the European Research Council along these lines, but I didn't think it was that insightful to do anything about it. So I only just started writing it now, this is 10 years of research, is that when AI comes along or other technologies, then a job that defines a bundle will change, but it's very rarely that it will be destroyed completely. And that's what's been worrying people with the AI. How many jobs is it going to take out? And they give you a percentage. For AI to take away a job is to destroy everything that you do in that job. But in fact, AI doesn't do that. It destroys some of the things you do, and you keep the others. Then, how do you respond to that? You respond to that. How does the company respond to that? It responds to that by telling you, I'm going to take away these tasks from your job. I'm going to give you others. You're going to have a new role in the company, and you're going to work with AI. And that's how the world moves on. You know, like so the biggest change that we are seeing now with AI as it's coming along is that AI is changing the role of workers have in a company, not getting rid of the workers and having the company operate with machinery only. People are still in charge. There is a management that is in charge, and there are workers who are in charge of their environment and what they are doing. And if there is good management, it's going to provide good working conditions for those people working in the environment. And I'm going to explain to you in a little while what those good conditions are. And that's what the sort of challenge that management have in a company is how to create those jobs where people are still in charge, but the boring work is done by the machines that have the AI. Now, with robots, it's obvious what the boring things are. We're carrying weights. What are they? There is a very famous international federation of robotics based in Germany, I think. No, I'm pretty sure actually, that produces the data and tells us what robots do. Robots do carrying heavy weights. Their main activities, welding, joining heavy metals. I've seen some of those in manufacturing actually in a car company. They are mainly working in transport equipment. In other words, they make cars and other transport machinery or heavy engineering. That's about it of what they do. It's this heavy manual work. In warehouses, in Amazon warehouses, they carry boxes from shelves into the place where they're shipped off to the client. So they're doing very boring stuff. Of course, you should want to do robots to do that. I mean, why would you want people to suffer doing these jobs? I mean, I don't know if you've, I guess you are all too young, even the front row, to have seen a movie called Modern Times with Charlie Chaplin. Has anyone of you seen that movie? It's making fun of the assembly line of Henry Ford. Because, I mean, what made Henry Ford famous and introduced the motor car to the mass market was to electrify the assembly line. So he had people standing this close to each other, like this, and there was a belt running in front of them, and they were doing just one thing. So the role of Charlie Chaplin was to tighten some screws. So he was doing this thing from 9 to 5. So when he was finishing work and then he was going home, he was walking in the street to get the bus, and he was doing this to sort of show how boring that routine job is. The thing that made Ford motor cars so famous, the Model T and all that, what it was doing to workers. I mean, it was supposed to be a comedy, but that's how you would see it. Now, robots have destroyed all those jobs, and that's a good thing. You no longer have to do this all the time. You go and work in the service sector. So that's what we need. Now, why don't those things happen more frequently? Well, because there are frictions in labor markets, and it's not friction on the way of fighting, but the friction is defined as barriers to the smooth and quick adjustment of the labor market to new shocks, and they stop us from adjusting quickly. And if you use traditional supply and demand and prices don't give you signals about frictions. Prices will be hopeless, in fact, if you relied on the prices. If you relied on the economy of Hayek, Friedrich Hayek, to understand how these things work, you wouldn't be able to get anywhere. You need to think of the friction as it applies to jobs. I mean, I'm not undermining the poor guy. He's extremely distinguished, and he's made the world a happier place in some ways, I guess. It's just, as Isaac Newton famously said, the only way I can see very far is that I can stand on the shoulders of giants, and he's one of the giants that we stand on the shoulders of as economists. And here they are in the case of AI. First of all, we don't have the information, right? The information is what shocks are we experiencing with AI. We don't know. I mean, even the scientists, the tech people are saying different things. So what would us poor economists know if they don't? How is the labor market adapting to them? Economists disagree on that, although most good economists don't disagree, but anyway, they do. That's a very important friction information about the future. We cannot forecast, as we were saying over lunch with some of your professors. Location is a problem. Where are jobs being created, and are they created where the workers are? That's another friction, how to move workers to jobs or jobs to workers. And skills. What skills do I need to succeed in the world of AI? And how can I get them? Now, if we're going to understand AI, and if we're going to make sure that it's applied well, then we must understand those frictions. First, understand how serious the problem is, and then understand how to deal with it. So let's look at information. We did some research in the UK. We talked to about 5,000 workers about their jobs and are they worried about AI, because one thing that struck us, and we decided to do that, I did that with the Institute for the Future of Work that was mentioned in the introduction, if you're paying attention. Why did we do that? Because lots and lots of workers sound very confused. They're worried that they're going to lose their jobs, and what jobs are they going to get? I mean, only last week I was in a restaurant close to my university in London, and the server asked me what I do. You know, they realized most of the people going there are university people. She asked me what I do, and I said to her, I work on AI and jobs. And she said, oh my God, she said, are we really going to lose our jobs? I'm very worried about it, you know, because I'm learning this. It was a good, elegant restaurant. Am I not going to have a job in a few years? And I said to her, I can guarantee you that one job that you will always have is in the restaurant business. Because when you see interviews with people who consume the food and they say, would you be happy to be served by a robot? They say, no, I'm not going to go to a good restaurant, spend lots of money to have a robot come and throw a plate in front of me. The same applies to me, actually. So I said to her, I will always go and eat with her, eat at her tables. When we saw that uncertainty, we thought we'd just ask workers what they feel about AI. We talked about 5,000 of them. But we didn't. We commissioned interviewers to go and talk to about 5,000 of them. Employers seem to be excited about getting AI. So we wanted to get the views of both workers and their managers. Now, of course, you might say, well, if you want to know what AI is going to jobs, why don't you talk to Hinton and Hassabis and all these super clever people? Because it's not the super clever people that scientists are going to decide what AI will be used where. It's the managers, the owners of the companies or the startup that is starting a business using AI. So it's those that you should talk to. You know, how do you feel about doing it? And at the last, the economists started talking to people down on the shop floor, what they do. And what you hear actually is very, very interesting. So here is what we were told about their jobs, but they don't know what's going on. So the information friction is very serious. When we asked them, you know, what do you think your managers can do to improve conditions at work? You know, what will make you happier at work? It's a kind of happiness analysis, what psychologists call a survey to understand the well-being of workers. Then they say, now saying more money would be nice. More money comes fourth in the things that they want to see at work. Maybe we pay British workers too much, and that's why it's the fourth. But the first one they always mention is better communication with managers and subordinates. By the way, we pay British workers very little. Don't take that seriously, what I said. I don't think wages have kept up with inflation. Better communication with managers and subordinates in the company. They want, obviously, because they are worried about what management is thinking. They want to see more transparency about company policy. What is the company thinking that it's going to do in the future. They want better social relations at work with colleagues, and that's not because they feel lonely or something, it's because they feel that if you have informal social, where you find out more about what's going on, they don't like the kind of presentation or when the manager gathers all the workers and tells them, by the way, we're doing very well and we had some profits and we're going to bring in new technology. They want informally to talk. By the way, the worst thing, this we didn't ask it ourselves, but there are surveys by psychologists who ask them what's the thing that makes you feel most unhappy at work? What could happen at work when you go in the morning that would give you one of the unhappiest days you ever have at work? You won't believe it, but it's when the boss wants to see you. He said, if I go to my desk and I find a note, I get a message, the boss wants to see you, that kills my day. They worry all day and everything. That's why they want informal interaction. But if the boss walks around and says, let's go and have a coffee to have a chat, they like that. And finally, they want more time flexibility, including home working, and they do like 4-day week, by the way, both in North America and Europe. So that's communication. Obtaining communication about the company's intentions and knowing how to use it is the key to dealing with that uncertainty. We have learned, in our survey, we have learned that the best way to communicate internally is through informal contact with workers. And that's it. Now, interestingly, something that I'm not going to cover here is because we also did an analysis of millions and millions of job advertising in the UK, data collected by a company called Azuna. The number one skill that workers demand when they advertise job is the ability to communicate well. We're looking for employees who will communicate well within the company, that will communicate well with our customers. They're clear when they speak, they have clear thinking. So it's quite interesting that workers want to have more communication from managers, and managers want to have more communication from workers. And somehow it doesn't work. So we need, so if you want a job that you're guaranteed to be in high demand, just learn how to be a communications manager, to learn how to communicate, how to teach people to communicate well at work. Now, location is also a problem with AI. And the reason, thank you, gosh, you ran well. And the reason that location is a problem with AI is that there is what we economists call the agglomeration externality. What the agglomeration externality is that you become more productive when you work in the same environment as other people who are working in the same area. And it especially applies for research. Why are big universities like Harvard, MIT, for example, more successful in research outcomes than small universities? I won't mention any. Because there are lots more scientists thinking the same way, and they throw ideas at each other. And then these ideas produce results much faster. If you look at the list of the most research successful universities in the world, for example, you will see that they're big in size. It's well correlated with size. That applies with AI more than anything because they're such new technologies. Look at the most successful countries in AI research: China and the United States. In reverse order, actually, United States and China. They're both massive countries full of scientists, but not only that, they do their research in 3 or 4 places. In the United States, most of it is done in California, in Silicon Valley, and then Boston around MIT and Harvard, and Seattle around Microsoft, and that's about it. Look at China, it's 3 centers again. It's Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou area, and Shenzhen. It used to be only Shenzhen with Hawaii when it first started. Then Hangzhou is with DeepSeek now, and all that is attracting more and more people. But it's always that limited number of places. And in fact, one of the biggest failures of Europe is that it doesn't have any place like that. What Britain is developing, something is known as the Golden Triangle of London, Oxford, and Cambridge. Within Britain, it's completely dominant. It's like an AI hub, but it doesn't compare with Silicon Valley or I don't know, or Boston. It's getting there. That's a problem. If you want to work in AI, you do well to go to a place where there are many other people and many other companies working in that kind of AI. I guess here you have semiconductors, which is a hub in a way. So if you're engineers who want to work in semiconductor industry, don't move. But if you want to discover the new large language model, I don't know, maybe go to Silicon Valley. And if you want a more relaxed life and more happiness, come to Europe. That's important to be happy in life, don't have, you know. Okay, so mobility. Mobility is an important friction. Now let's talk about skills. What's the time very way? I should be finishing, I guess, shouldn't I? Now the main friction with AI is skills. In all industrial revolutions, this was not a problem. In the first industrial revolution, for example, the skill requirements in factories was well below what workers were doing before in the cottage industry. People very famously talk about the Luddite movement, where they were destroying machines. They were not destroying machines because they took their jobs. They were destroying machines because the machines were being operated by children and others without qualifications, and therefore they were paid low wages, whereas the Luddites were very skilled artisans, and they had to lose their skill and get paid less. This is not happening with AI. AI wants people with more skill to work. So what are the main skills that are needed? And it's basically just one, data dynamics. They want good communication, but the main thing that employers want you to communicate, in the world of AI, is what's in the data. Study the data well and learn how to communicate the results to your colleagues and use those results to attract a customer base. There are many jobs that are not influenced by digital skills. Those still want good communication and empathy and good ability for hospitality and care and everything. Those that are called soft skills, that are at the bottom is a terrible expression because I think they're much more difficult to acquire than engineering and mathematics. Engineering and mathematics is that logic. You sit on your own and you get it. But how do you learn to be sympathetic to a sick person? You know, like, it's difficult to succeed. And I've seen some recent estimates that something like 40% of jobs are of that last category. So if you don't like all these STEM subjects and maths and all that, don't worry, 40% of jobs are still open to you. But it's good to have both. I'm going to move fast through here because we talked about this directly or indirectly, you know, that people are looking for the data analytics and some basic financial and economic knowledge, how to apply it, how to do management. You need to learn about logistics because a lot of what's happening now is in both supply chains and selling on the internet and all that. And now are firms succeeding to find the workers doing those jobs? And the answer is no, not really. I mean, like in Western countries, there is a lot of shortage of workers. It's difficult to find the right people to work in these AI-driven technologies. And that's making it especially difficult in recent times because of all the restrictions being put on immigration. I said to you that there's a location friction that people have to move. That involves international movements sometimes, but there are so many restrictions on immigration, especially in the United States, that used to attract so many. But also in Europe now it's getting like that. And I mean, in Britain it's impossible to get a job if you're not British and live in Britain nowadays. And the skills, as I was saying, is the most important. How do we prepare for skills? I'll be brief here, and then we can take it up in discussion, because I know you have questions about this. Now you might think that if you want to succeed, you just have to learn STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I don't think that's right, actually. It's not good to specialize in STEM. You must be able to understand the basics of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But don't think that don't try to specialize too much. And that's because of the information problems. We don't know where the science is leading to. So it's better to have an open mind. Don't just learn one thing and then say, that's it, I'm going to find a company and do this, and that's the end of the story. Because in 5 years' time, it might be something completely different. But you're going to need STEM. So I think STEM should be part of it, of education, of higher education. Otherwise, you're running the risk of giving into AI, to follow what Hinton was saying. The most important skill, and in fact Dennis Hassab has made that in his speech as well, completely independently, is that you have to learn how to learn. Learning how to learn means that you have the basic of STEM, you have the basic of the other sciences I mentioned. You learn how to communicate, you learn about society, sociology, psychology, how people think, and then you get a job, and you learn what your company is doing. And then every time your role changes because of AI, you adapt, because you've learned how to learn new things. And you move on until you become the manager of the company, or until you create your own startup and you become like Sam Altman and Jensen Huang. Who knows? There will be more Jensen Huangs in the future. Don't worry, he's not the only one to come out of Taiwan. Now, there are many skills that apply across occupations, and you can find that out by looking at what jobs are being advertised. I mentioned communication. About 80% of jobs want good communication when they're being advertised. Other one is critical thinking, conflict resolution within the company or between the customer and the company, how to develop a customer base and hold them together. If you're going into the industries like health and care, which is going to be a growth industry, you need to learn how to deal with empathy, sympathize with other people's problems and see how you can deal with them. These are difficult things, but very, very important. And if you're going to be a developer of the technology, that very few of you will be, then learn more maths, engineering, and digital languages, but it's not a job that is going to occupy many, I'm afraid. The training you do in the company, like 75 hours a year, according to McKinsey Global Institute, is good enough. And then your company should be providing good jobs on the principles that I outlined before. I want to show you what we discovered. I like this diagram because the colors are so good, but also the information it gives you. We asked people in the last 3 years, has technology changed your everyday work experience in any of the following ways? And we asked them to say which made it better and which made it worse. And you can see the one that the workers like most is opportunities to learn new things. So this is the learning to learn. The flexibility to choose my work location. The Brits like to work from home. That's what it means to choose my work location, to decide whether I'm going to work from home or work at the factory. The opportunities to interact informally and learn from my colleagues. The opportunities to apply my own ideas. The influence of decisions that are being made at the company. So again, it's the communication. Career advancement, obviously, accurate and fairness in evaluations, and my salary comes way down. And then the things that they hate most, surveillance at work, they hate cameras in the office. The pace of work, they don't like it when the employer says we have to do this fast. They hate working during unsociable hours, and that's what all these smartphones and all that's the difference they make. Like, I mean, you might have a boss who likes to work on Saturday night and all day Sunday, and they keep throwing emails at you, and if you don't reply by Monday morning, they tell you, what have you been doing? I asked you so many questions. Like, workers hate that. Volume of work, health and safety is important, and mental health as well. And people actually claim that the introduction of AI, of new technologies with AI at work, has made health and safety worse to most workers, which I'm not sure exactly why or how, but it seems to be so uniform. And this is what Americans say. It's the American Psychological Association, and similar to this one, this was soon, it was the year after COVID, by the way, and 81% of Americans interviewed said that how employers respond to mental health is a very important consideration when they get a job. And then flexible working hours, work culture that respects time off, balance between family and work, the ability to work remotely, a 4-day week. I think this survey, though, has been influenced quite a lot by COVID. I doubt whether you get these answers now. They'll be in that direction, but not by these extreme numbers. And that's it. I'm sorry, I've overshot by 5 minutes only. That the biggest challenge we're facing with AI is the smooth transition of workers to new types of jobs. It's not going to be the end of work, I guarantee you. I wish there was less work, actually, in the future than I think there's going to be. And frictions such as the information imperfections we have, and the skill matches are the most serious that need adjustment. And it can only be dealt with by having reforms to our education to make it more consistent with what's coming, and by improving information communication at work. Right. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Sir Pissarides. Please remain on the stage. Next, we would like to proceed with the Q&A section, and we have the privilege to invite our moderator, EVP John, to be on the stage once again to commence this discussion.
We have prepared some questions before the speech, and we select 8 questions. I think that I read out for the audience first.
Oh, you're going to read them all together? All right.
One by one or one by one?
And one by one is better, I think.
The first question is from Liao Yu. She's the student of College of Management, and she suggests that many people believe AI will reduce the demand for human labor, making it harder for graduate students to find jobs. I think you have the answers.
Yes, I think the answer to the question is it's going to reduce some types of labor, but not generally.
And she especially like to know what advice would you give the students?
No, my advice to the students is what I was saying right at the end. You should be quite open on what you learn within your interests, of course. You have to be interested in what you're learning, but don't specialize too much. I mean, obviously, if you do a PhD and postdoc and all that, you will specialize, but I see a small minority of students doing it. Learn many different things. Be curious, actually. Curiosity and good memory is going to help you. Just learn lots and lots of things going on. Read lots of books, including mine. The new one that is coming out on AI. A little bit of commercial advertising is allowed, right?
Actually, our president, he encouraged the interdisciplinary research work very much.
Yes, interdisciplinary, yeah.
And the students get involved with this project. I think they have opened their horizons. And now our president promotes the sports activities in the department as well.
Yeah.
When they work together, try to take a task from different minds, different backgrounds, they can have some sparks. And I think they will be a very good experience in their student life.
Yeah, I think that's something like that is very good in the world of AI. Just be exposed to different things. I mean, don't think, like if you have a public lecture and it's on something you don't know about, it's about mental health, for example, or something. Don't say, oh no, this is not in my area, so I'm not going to go and listen. This is how you learn the new things. You don't have time to sit and do a complete degree or read the textbook in everything. By sitting there for an hour and a half and listen to someone who spent years and years doing that research, you learn a lot. Make notes, keep them. Or if there's a recording, go and listen to it, take notes again. That's what I'd say.
So we can go to the second question.
Yeah.
The second question is from the 理学院化学系的刘敬祥学生. I'm sorry, I don't have his English name. And the question is that the inference from Jason Jin Huang, just mentioned that, the 回答, we call it, is a very famous guy, makes virtual anxiety to the student who just guaranteed from humanity track or social science track. Is there no hopes for them, and all the opportunities are left for engineers and doctors? Is that true?
It's completely false.
So I think he will be happy to.
I don't know how he got that idea. Actually, it's completely puzzling.
From Jason Huang.
Well, when some people when they are very clever about something, like he's obviously very, very clever about some things. By the way, he got an honorary degree from Hong Kong UST the year before I got mine this year. So I listened very carefully to the whole ceremony to prepare myself for the ceremony, and he said that thing in his acceptance. But I just don't know though how he gets that idea. I think people when people are very successful in something and obviously very clever and worthy, then it's as if they feel that that's the whole world, like don't look outside, which I always try to avoid it by not talking about frictions all the time. But you see, if you look at very carefully done studies of what jobs there will be, what demand there will be, even over the next 10 years, you see that something like 40% of employment will not need any digital skills at all, other than the very, very simple ones that everyone knows now through their smartphones. Obviously, 20 years, even 10 years ago, companies were advertising for workers who know how to navigate the web. They know how to do a search over Google. Now no one mentions that, because as soon as you acquire your first smartphone at age 6 or 7, you know how to do it. That's going to be very useful knowledge, whatever you do. But that's it. 40% of jobs will not need anything else. How could you say that there will be no jobs left? In fact, if I'm going to make a prediction, predictions by economists prove wrong 90% of the time. But if I'm going to make a prediction about jobs, is that in the future, more jobs will be needed in social-related subjects than in technology. If it's 40% today, it's going to be 60% very soon, because of aging populations and because of increasing living standards. And when your living standard increases, you want to enjoy more leisure activities, work less. It's a natural human instinct. And those leisure activities require people like my waitress in London who have human skills. She was wonderful. It made you enjoy the meal. If I had a cold robot, where is it? So despite what he said, I think, I think there will be, now there is a massive demand for engineers in that, but sooner or later that demand will be overtaken by the demand for people with empathy and good communication skills and good economics.
Yeah. I think that we attended a conference held by the Dean Tsai last week.
Yeah.
And he invites the finance people. And the CEO mentioned that once they have the money in the bank, they would invest to what improve our future life. And that kind of philosophy is very important for like, certainly it's not engineer.
Yeah.
It's not engineer decision.
Yeah.
But it's come from the social science decision.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
therefore maybe the humanity is more important. Try to improve our daily life.
Yeah.
In particular, who had the money.
Well, you see, that's it. I think Elon Musk is even worse, actually, in saying those things. I mean, I don't know if you are, no reason why, but I don't know if you have followed any, these TV, movies, videos, and all that on Elon Musk's life. But for all my sins, the BBC did a three 1 hour long program series on Elon Musk. And they interviewed his mother, his ex-wife, their friends, and they were all saying all he cares about is work. It's impossible to live with him. It's not clear that how many children he has. He's like Boris Johnson of our own. When they ask him about children, they look vague like that. And he's giving mathematical symbols for the names of his children. And then he comes up and says, 100 years from now, there will only be some technicians working on engineers and no one will work. But then if you talk to people, well, they want to be happy in life. They want to go to a football game and see their team win. And they want to go to a social gathering with friends and go home happy. That thing never ever crosses their mind. I mean, ask Huang or Elon Musk, how many football games have they followed and how did they enjoy them?
Yes. So the students in the social science department, you should not worry about that. And
you should be happy.
Yes, should be happy for that. Yeah. The third question is from a student, Huang Ping Chi. He's the student department of environmental engineering. And he mentioned that how should we address the issue of potential human mental health decline in the AI era, where increased human-machine collaboration's efficiency shifts human work content to more complex and high-pressure tasks? Is it possible?
Yeah, well, I just showed you the graph we computed, the colorful graph we computed in Britain. It's in complete agreement, actually, what he said. I think it's very wisely spoken, whether you are, if you're in here. There is a decline in mental health, and there are worries about that AI is bringing more pressures. It doesn't have to, though, and I think that's partly due to lack of knowledge, that you don't know what's going on. And one of the things, I mean, I don't know if it's something that will create mental health problems, but if you have any tendency, if there are any existing problems and then you are subjected to this as well, it will make them worse. There will be worsening. The only solution for that is that first of all, societies need to pay more attention to mental health issues. I mean, I know people that don't want to sort of talk about anyone's privacy, but I do know people with mental health, and you can see that social care is not good in the UK. It's terrible, in fact. I mean, generally medical care in the UK is deteriorating, but especially mental health care. And not many companies have it. Some of the big companies have a corporate a corporate psychologist or medical doctor to deal with that. And I think that's a very good development to have a dedicated person dealing with mental health within the company. But not many companies can afford that. But I was surprised actually by how many have it in the UK. That they have a corporate medical department devoted to the big company. I went to a meeting once in the House of Lords, or places where they were discussing this issue, because the Lords wanted to encourage Parliament to think more about it. But that's the way to approach it. I think it's a very urgent problem, and what we know so far is that AI is making work more stressful, because they don't know, because the speed of work is accelerating, and you don't want to be the weakest link. You see the things done by AI move very fast, and then you move at a very slow pace behind, and that's giving you problems. But I think management needs to have good training in how to deal with these issues, but having a corporate department is a good idea.
Is there any cure for that?
Sorry, there's a cure?
Yeah.
Not that we know of, I think.
It's, learning to learn.
Yes,
Kind of philosophy.
I mean, the issues with mental health is always that you need to contain it. I don't think we know how to cure it completely, because we don't understand the brain. But we know how to contain it with these different measures that I mentioned. But I think it is, we have the opportunity to make things better, but so far, at least in this dimension, is making it worse. Yeah.
So we go to another question. It's from the student Xie Mingjie. She is the student from Department of Industrial and Information Management. And based on your search and matching framework, I think you should read your book.
Yes.
And how should we understand AI not just as a substitute, but as a mediator that reshapes how people and tasks are matched? And AI reduces information friction, but also creates new institutional and cognitive friction. How do you view the impact of this new friction on the future workforce?
Now, the AI is being applied to getting a better match between worker and tasks. You can even do it with Gen AI, not even, with Gen AI. I don't know how much it's used in practice yet, because we don't see a big change in the results of matching that we used to have before. But it's certainly being done. And it should improve the situation a lot. In fact, I have my son decided to ask ChatGPT if I would make a good Minister of Finance for Britain, because the Minister of Finance in Britain always has problems, because there's so much debt they cannot put taxes. And in fact, ChatGPT gave him a very good answer, actually. He said, Christopher Pissarides is a very distinguished economist. He worked on this, that, but I found no evidence at all that he would be any good as a Minister of Finance. So there you go. So equally, if you ask them, so I decided not to apply for the job. So if you give them all characteristics and say, what can they do? I mean, for what ChatGPT said, that I shouldn't leave the university because I'm well matched there. Then they will come up with answers like that, and I think they should be used more and more to match. They're used a lot in social matching. You find a girlfriend or a boyfriend there. That's the other thing I've learned from my children. Dad, you don't go to bars to meet people anymore. You look at the internet. So things are improving. But I think I'm applying to matching definitely. Now, of course, the other aspect of frictions, like the ones that I studied a long time ago, research and matching, are the ones I pointed out here, is the information friction at work as to what new AI equipment or software will be applied and how will it change work. We talked to a lot of people about that, actually, and any AI makes some people work off better off, some worse off. One of the most interesting special cases where it's applied is where they started using some British hospitals robotic operations, where they give them information about the patient and what the operation needs to do, and a robot is directed to do the operation using both AI and robotic movement. And the doctor, the surgeon, basically sits at the desk with a laptop and watches what's going on and does it. And doctors loved it. They really loved that, because these are operations that take 4 or 5 hours. And the doctors were saying, you won't believe what back problems surgeons had. You bend over your body on the operating theater for 5 hours, you're operating, you get completely exhausted, demoralized, destroyed, and all that. Whereas now we just sit there with a coffee in front of a laptop and direct it. But then in an operating theater, you have what's known as a scrub nurse that cleans any blood spillage and all that comes out, watches carefully what's going on, and gives the tools to the doctors normally. And they absolutely hated it. They said, all we have to do is to stand next to some machines that are doing things that we don't understand. And the job is so boring, whereas before we were standing next to the doctor, they were talking to each other, we were helping the doctor. So something like this, you automate an operation, and it's successful. And one part of those involved in this task loved it, another part involved in that task hated it. I don't know how you deal with those problems, I guess.
Now, if we, as a teaching staff in the university, so how do we educate AI to the non-AI department, and what's the key elements you think that's essential for education?
First of all, the thing that you have to educate everyone is that AI could be used to help you at work, rather than fearing that they're not wanting to learn it, or not wanting to talk to people who deal with AI because it will be scary and you won't understand anything. Understand the basics, but then when you teach it, understand the basics of explain to them the basics of what it can do. What does Gen AI, what can Gen AI do? What do the large language models do for you? What tasks have we programmed AI to do so far? What's current research being done, and therefore what's going to be like in the future? But you see, if you get the chance to talk to people like Jensen Huang, or Jeff Hinton, or Demis Hassabis and all that, don't ask them, don't be like a journalist that is looking for something sensationalist. Say to them, oh, so Mr. Huang, are we going to have jobs in 10 years from now? That's a silly question, because he doesn't know, no one knows. Say, well, how much do we know now about AI? What can it do that will change work? And therefore you see that option is a menu, if you like, and you take from that menu. And then it can improve things. Even like when you look at large language models, for example, you explain to people, some people don't understand, is that the answer you get from an LLM, it depends on what training you give to that LLM. Once you realize that, we have a case of the police, some police stations in Britain. When they realize that, they trained an LLM to understand the reporting language to a court of law. You know, if a policeman arrests a criminal, then that policeman will have to write a report on the crime. So they trained an LLM. This is the West Midlands police station around Birmingham. They trained an LLM how to speak in that language. And now an LLM does their reporting, and they save so much time. They love it, the policemen. They get the basic details of the case. They say, I've arrested a person doing this and that. We want to go to court and charge with this and that crime, write a report for the judge and the jury, and it writes it in 15 seconds or something. Yeah. They read it, they might correct one or two things, and it goes in. That's how you use LLM in your work. You learn what it can do, and then you train it accordingly.
So encourage the students to love AI.
Yeah.
Instead to worry about it.
I know my search and matching books has been used to train an LLM. So maybe the one who asked about how can it play in practice, they will not need to read my book anymore. They will ask that large language model. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, so you still read the book if you want to find out about it.
Scottish and English.
Yeah.
So would you
No, there is one particular that I know that's used to train it, but I'm not giving the secret away.
Okay. So the next question is from the social science political department. Is Guo Hao Lun student? He's a postgraduate student, and he asked, "How did you feel after receiving the Nobel Prize? Did you still feel excited about it now?"
Oh, I was so sad, you won't believe it. Yeah, now, I'll tell you the best thing actually about winning the Nobel Prize is what my friend and fellow Laureate Michael Spence won it for, which is signaling. You signal to someone else what you do, and for some reason, people pay a lot more attention to what you've done in the past than what you might be doing now if you have the label Nobel laureate than if you don't. So soon after the Nobel Prize, lots of people started paying more attention to my work. I get invitations to talk about things related to my work. That's the thing that makes the biggest difference. But I think more generally, that's the purpose of. That's one of the purposes of rewards in life. So anyway, the signaling. What Michael Spence did, which I don't entirely agree with him, is that he also applied it to university degrees. Like you basically don't learn anything at university. You show that you can do it, and you get a degree, and you signal to the rest of the world that you are clever enough to go to university and get a degree. Therefore, they should employ you. I think you do learn at university. At least I hope you learn at universities. But there are many other things that's a pure signaling device. And rewards is the best signaling device. Why do footballers win? Why do they win rewards that they're best goal scorer in the world? Because then they can get a bigger salary from another club.
Would you mind if I ask, did it change the viewpoint from your wife and your children after you won the Nobel Prize?
You mean that they would change their viewpoint about me?
Yes.
Yeah, it made life a lot harder.
Okay.
They thought everyone is praising you, so don't expect that at home.
Sure.
No, I'm joking.
And so we could go to the next question. It's around freshman. And she's the Hu Xinling student. What is your picture about the world with AI in 10 years later?
I don't know. We've got influence where it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be as widespread as people say, actually, because I'm quite struck by how unpopular it is in many situations, the AI. But just think about it. Like in 20 years ago, or maybe 25, we didn't have Google. We didn't have the search engines. And now our life changed completely with Google. You say, oh, you don't know about it, just Google about it. And already, we have Gen AI and LLMs for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And our life changed there. I mean, like even how did I select Christmas, my presents for Christmas? Yes, I said to AI, I need to make a Christmas present with this person. He gave me, I had ChatGPT. He gave me a whole list, which are amazing. So in that direction, there will be new things, but who knows? Who could have predicted 5 years ago that we're going to have ChatGPT and all the other large language models that developed? So in that respect, I expect it to be, but I don't expect work to change very much. So for most people, parts of work will change, but not everything. I think we'll still be lecturing from podium. So don't worry, you're not going to be left without a job. And the professors, don't worry, you still have students.
And the next question is from a student, Xie Sen Da. He is the master student, Department of Photonics. And the question is that in AI-driven Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, how can we quantify the net job creation and skill gaps created by AI in the green transition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wouldn't emphasize what the question says about quantify. The important thing is to persuade the developers to develop AI in a way that helps in the green transition, because it can be done, and the green transition would be a lot easier if we used AI to develop in that direction. And currently, not much research is going on that. I mean, I wouldn't worry about quantifying how much is being done as yet, as long as you know that we need more. But it's good to emphasize to bring the green transition. I did a little bit of work on that once, and there is a lot more we can do. I mean, I can give you a very simple example. Like agriculture, for example, and still the way we cultivate the land and collect the fruit and all that, is not very green. It's not very consistent with green. We waste too much water. There is a lot of randomness. Like you want to water your orchards, unleash the hoses and flood everything, and it would be okay. The way we treat soil is not good. It doesn't give you maximum productivity. You could train drones to identify dry areas, identify areas of ripe fruit for cultivation, identify diseases, and it's going to save you enormous resources. Despite the fact that very few people are employed in agriculture compared with what we do in the cities, 70% of the world's water supply is wasted on agriculture. And then we're complaining about either water shortages or flooding and all that. So instead of devoting most of the drone research being done at present is for military purposes. Because what is a drone? It's like an aircraft that causes destruction to the other side in conflict, and it doesn't involve human life. So they think, that's great, let's develop in that direction. But if only some of that effort was directed to working on drones for agriculture, it would make so much difference to getting closer to the sustainable goals of the United Nations. I have an interesting story about actually that only a couple of months ago I met someone in China. I met him in Hong Kong, but he has a good startup in China which is developing drone technology to improve the efficiency of agriculture. And it was a very impressive glossy leaflet on what they do and how they're developing and thinking, and we're talking. And then I said to him, how do you feel when you tell people that you're improving drone technology? Don't they tell you, are you secretly supplying the military or something? And he said it was his biggest worry, that sometimes people were not taking it seriously. Drones, yeah, of course, they're used in every military conflict in the world, in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and all that. And what do you mean agriculture? And he said, yeah, but we're genuinely interested in improving the efficiency of agriculture. And he showed me, and that's where we should be working on when it comes to the green transition and the AI technologies, to use more and more in that direction.
Yeah. I think we have a common goal. We should share the same common goal. And we will work together.
Yeah, exactly.
And should be the final question. And it's from the College of Engineering, is the aeronautic department. The student is the PhD student, and his name is the Zhang Kaibo. And he asked, what's the 3 biggest changes that you think AI has brought you in your studying field and your daily life? Maybe more than 3.
My study field, actually, the biggest changes made is that just as I was thinking about retirement, it made me come back to work, working even longer hours. Because ever since my PhD, soon after my PhD, rather, I started working on the impact of technology on labor markets and jobs. And I thought, right, now it's finished. We got our prizes, we have our pension, let's retire. But then AI technologies are coming along, and there is so much to analyze. And when I saw what people are saying, that it's based on such little knowledge of how labor markets respond to technology, I came back again, and I got 2 very big grants, by coincidence, about £2 million, so it would be $2.5 million something each for 3 years. One the European, one from the European Research Council, and one from NAFI Foundation in Britain. And so there you go. They all lasted 4 years instead of 3, so it's another 8 years' work that wasn't expected. In terms of what I do, though, it hasn't affected me. I don't, because I don't teach students anymore, so it wouldn't have affected my teaching. But I doubt whether it affected the teaching, actually, of any of my colleagues at the LSE anyway, London School of Economics. I think maybe they use it to get information about their course. You say, I did try that, actually. It gives you very useful information, and I would have used it. Ask ChatGPT, I need to give a course intermediate course in monetary economics or something, and how can I structure it? And it will give you subtitles that you can work on. I think that's a good idea of use of AI. In my personal life, I told you how it influenced me. It made it so much easier to choose Christmas presents. It's important, Christmas presents, If you give the wrong present, or if you don't give any presents, that's it. You are doomed for the next year. You have to wait for the next Christmas to make up for it.
Sure. 我们还有时间吗？Should we open to the public, to the audience?
Yeah, let them explain to you what they want to ask, and you ask me.
Okay.
So they can even say in Chinese if they like.
Okay. So 我们现在可以有一些开放性的问题，你要用英文来问也可以，用中文问也可以，我帮你翻译。看看在场的所有的同仁、还有学生以及外宾，你们有没有什么问题想要提出来的，都可以问。有麦克风吗？
Hello, my name is Torbjörn Nordling, and I'm a professor in mechanical engineering, and I would like to ask, why is supply and demand a bad framework for studying jobs? I mean, naturally friction is important for the speed of change, but long term it's the supply and the demand that anyway sets the need. So I would love if you could elaborate on your statement that supply and demand and prices is a bad framework for it.
I think supply and demand is I wouldn't say bad framework. It's not a good framework for studying the impact of AI on markets, because it misses the transition from where we are now to where we're going to be not 10 years, but even 20 years from now with AI. And I think the transition is important, both because it affects human well-being and productivity, how we apply it, what are the frictions, if you like, to apply it, and also where we get to. You see, the way supply and demand work graphically would be that you shift one of the curves and then you look for the new intersection point and say this is where the economy is going to go. But in practice, where it's going to go depends on the path, and the path is long. I can give you an example that it's the same principle underlying it. When the Soviet Union collapsed, and the small European countries that in Eastern Europe declared that they want to join the European Union. If you take a country like Hungary, it's basically like Austria. It was the Austro-Hungarian Empire before, and they were divided into two countries. One was under Soviet control, the other wasn't. So in 1990, if I was using supply-demand analysis and had to make a prediction, I would say that in the final equilibrium, Hungary is going to be like Austria. Now, it's now 35 years and it's not there yet. It's way below Austria. You only have to visit them and you see it. But when you look at the statistics, you do. Therefore, what's supply and demand telling me? It's telling me where it's going to tend to, but wait and wait and wait. It's no good. Whereas if you look at these paths that you follow, then you look what's slowing down the path, you look at what direction you're taking, capital, you have to bring in capital, of course, when it comes to investment, when it comes to tracing the whole growth path. And you learn a lot more. I'd say that supply and demand, in some situations, you might get faster adjustment, in which case is a more useful tool. But when it comes to growth economics, and the adjustment to that is faster. There's another framework actually that economists use a lot, which is the solo growth model. And then those who are economists amongst you probably heard of it, or at least I hope you heard of it. And then we say, if you throw an economy off the path, off the growth path of a solo economy that grows, everything steady, with steady growth, it will get back to the path. And the way we draw it in the textbooks and we teach it is as if getting back to the path will take you 3 or 4 years. In fact, it takes 30 years. You see, look, at the end of the Second World War, Germany was a completely destroyed economy. Britain wasn't destroyed. If you had to make a prediction, at least for West Germany, where it's going to be, the answer is immediately, it's going to be like Britain. It was a country of the same population at that time. It was part of Europe. It was getting the same assistance through the Marshall Plan and all that. They say it's going to be like Britain. And when was Germany made? When did it develop to be like Britain? 1968, but 20 years later, despite the massive investment that it got from the Marshall Plan. These things take time, and you need different frameworks for the supply and demand.
So basically, the point is that it takes so long, so that's why we should study the transition, and that's when
Absolutely.
When supply and demand doesn't provide the guidance. Thank you.
But it takes a lifetime, almost, for us. Like if you're Hungarian and you were celebrating and very happy in 1990 because of the change, you are still poorer than the Austrians now. You are not even as rich as the Greeks now, who are the sort of, for better or worse, the poorest. They are the poorest in Europe, the European Union, the Greeks. In statistical evidence, they are the unhappiest people in Europe. But I guarantee you, if you go to Greece, you'll never see so many happy people. It's a contradiction between what you see in the evidence and what you see in practice.
So the next question?
Yeah. You look a bit like Jensen Huang. I hope you're not Jensen Huang. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Christopher. It's a fantastic talk. Really enjoyed. My name is Shin-Sai, is the Dean of College of Science. I think nowadays everyone is talking about the powerful of AI, but I think less of them thinking about even the development of AI still need like a creation and imagination. Especially, I think like the very unique for human being, like the unique of thinking or consciousness. And I think this is the most important for the next stage of the AI. Would you comment on this?
Did you pick up everything? The acoustics was not very good actually from here. It was better from that side of the room.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that for AI, people are not really talking about how to include the individual, like the consciousness, the thinking, individual thinking of development AI. Everyone is talking about how powerful, how they're going to replace the world, and so on. But never talking about, it looks like the weakness or the difficulties of the development of AI. So would you comment on that?
Well, if I understood correctly, it's related to what I was saying, that we have control how to develop it in the sense that it can be used as a tool in our thinking and in the development of both science and the social science, how to improve lives, if you see what people want. And I think it should be developed in that direction even more than now. The only thing that, not the only, the main thing that sort of sets me back with that, if you like, is that unfortunately there is a tendency, there is this hostility between people, if you like, that if they see a new tool that they can use in conflict or in war or to dominate someone else, they will do it. And that's basically what Russell, is it Russell? No, I can't remember his first name actually. Russell, the professor I was telling you before about the dodo, he was saying, if you look at not only the animal kingdom, but specifically about Homo sapiens ever since they came and being the cleverest animal on the planet, their first thought was how to destroy everyone else. They destroyed the Neanderthals, they destroyed lots of other humanoids that appear here and there, one in your part of the world as well, actually, in East Asia. When they spread, they were destroying the animals, and we are still destroying animals and environment. So in that sense, it's worrying. So really the big question is not, but I think at the same time it will be developed to improve human life and human thinking. So what's a lot more difficult than is how do you stop this negative development taking place at the same time? Because, quite a revealing book, a very little book actually, which was quite revealing what I read about AI in the very first days of AI. It was written by Eric Schmidt of Google and Henry Kissinger at age 99. Of course, he passed away since then. And the head of the AI research at MIT, it's called The Age of AI something. And they said, nuclear weapons can destroy the world, but we know where they are, and we can measure them, and we can see if a country is getting ready to apply them because they are physical entities. And that's what controlled the nuclear proliferation, and there hasn't been a nuclear conflict since 1945, because we can monitor carefully. But with AI, we don't know. So they were saying even 10 years ago, something when the book was written, that that's the biggest worry and the biggest concern and the biggest challenge that we have to do. And the only way to do it is to begin with a high-level meeting between China and the United States, because they're the two countries that developed most the technology in the military sphere and agree something. But even they didn't know. It was probably Henry Kissinger's contribution to the book. But even they didn't know exactly what it could be and how you monitor it, because you just don't know. So So although I'm confident that it's going to be developed in a way that improves human well-being, I'm worried that it might at the same time develop in a more hostile way.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I see one more question.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lady over there. 哎，刚是哪一位？是这边吗？对，不是后面那一位，是抱歉。
Hello, Professor. I'm just a senior high school student, and I'm asking you for some advice for us. Then, because after we finish our school work, it'll be another 5 years. So, what are the advice for us? Any specific things?
Come to this university.
Yeah, quick. Yes.
Study something you are interested in, because then you are motivated. Are you interested in any of the courses of this university? You must be if you are here. Yes? No?
Kind of.
Huh?
Kind of.
What do you say?
你刚说什么？
有一点点。一点点。
A little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what can I say? Study more than one thing. There must be more than one thing you are a little bit interested, right? Yeah. Study them all. So you have a spread of knowledge like that.
So we will probably be looking forward for a lot of subjects, not only for one.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Be interdisciplinary. I used to dislike interdisciplinary when I was his age. I thought, no, just choose the thing you like and just study that one. But now I think interdisciplinary. Mind you, having said that, I did study a lot of sociology with my economics, which became interdisciplinary, but because I got interested in the society more than. Yeah, no, I think it's good to spread your knowledge more, yeah.
OK， 那你可以给隔壁那一位，隔壁的隔壁是 The lady wait for a long time.
Right.
Hi, I'm Faye from the language department, and I'm an English teacher. First of all, thank you for a very informative speech. It's good to know that my job will not be replaced right away. Okay, I have a quick question. I'm not sure whether you're still teaching or not. If you are, what is your policy for students' use of AI in class, and what are your recommendations to teachers?
No, I think no. We had some discussion about that actually, and I was listening to the others. They're saying that some of them use it, but it attracts your attention away from into other things. It's very easy to abuse it. I wouldn't use it in class, but then I wouldn't stop them from using it for their own private study. But you have to draw the line somewhere. You know, in class they have to use the class for human interaction, and then use AI and other technologies when they're doing their private study. But you should also encourage, though. I mean, book reading is reading a book. You learn a lot more. you learn different things, I should say, than doing. It's you know, the argumentation and that. I mean, I still read educational books outside my area. Actually, I think it's fun. I've read, I read books in psychology and all that. In fact, one book I read was about the Chinese characters in language. I don't speak any Chinese. I only know ni hao. But I read a whole book from a Yale professor called The Kingdom of Characters. You're an English teacher, not a Mandarin teacher. Yeah. So do you know that one of the biggest challenges in retaining the Chinese characters was how to develop a typewriter in Chinese? Do you know the shape of the first typewriter that could type Chinese? Yeah, I read it. You see, if you read the book I read, you will know it was round and it was turning. That it accommodated the maximum number of characters. It was very interesting, actually. So, you should separate those things. Actually, don't use it in class. You know, one of the other wise words of Jensen Huang. I love the guy for what he's done, actually. I don't think that I'm critical of him. But he said that they asked him if he uses LLMs, large language models, and he said he always uses 2 at any one time. At least that's what I understood when he said that he first gets an answer from one of them and then feeds it onto another and say, rewrite this in your own words. So, and then I was telling one of the students, I think it was one of the students at the LSE, I can't remember. I said, you know, you do it like that so that it's not obvious that you copied, that you got your answers from one, because it's fairly easy to identify the language of ChatGPT and all that, or DeepSeek or something. And then he said to me, oh, you're behind the times. Of course, it's known as DII. You DII your answer. You don't provide an AI answer. You provide a DAI'd answer by giving it to different LLMs and ask them to rewrite it for you. So be very careful when you're reading answers from your students. Yeah.
So maybe the time is up. If there's any other questions, you can send to international office, and we'll try to contact. And once again, thank you very much for the wonderful speech.
Thank you, Sir Pissarides and EVP Zhang, for guiding the discussion. Please return to your seats. We will take a group photo together. Okay, one more. Let's have the thumbs up, which in NCKU means success. When I count to 3, let's say success together, okay? Look at the camera. 1, 2, 3. Success. Thank you once again for your presence. We now conclude the lecture and look forward to seeing you in NCKU's next Nobel Laureate lecture in March. Thank you. Shall we give our speaker another round of applause to conclude the lecture?